Just left the keys on the table in the apartment, slammed the door as instructed. I'm crossing the bridge now. I've got a bad left leg today. I brought a massage ball with me and I've been rolling around on that, and it's a lot better than it was. I've taken ibuprofen. We'll see how it gets on. It's twinging and I've got 20 miles, not quite 20 miles, almost 18 miles to walk. We'll give it a go. Worst case scenario, we'll end up in a taxi. I'm carrying slightly less water and intending to try and fill it up more as we go. But anyway, yeah, it's feeling a lot better than it was. So, and it's really lovely today. Pink sky again. We're leaving at about 7:30. Again, it's a bit later than I'd wanted, but we're just taking everything easy. I spotted a stork on the roof. There's another one up there on the roof, actually 2 of them. The Parliament building. Yeah, that one at the front is definitely me. I haven't got quite the woolly socks on today. I do look quite like that though. I haven't got a stick. I probably should have a stick. It's quite a shock to be in an area that's so built up. And yet it's sort of nice as well to see a functioning city. It's big. Hola. Gracias. We're out of Logroño now and walking down a steady, quite flat path which led out of the park, and it's continued. We're making quite good progress towards Navarette. We're about, I think, 1/3 of the way, slightly more, and it's all been like this, apart from the city section of course. Passing lots of people now that are all saying, we say hola and they say buen camino. It's a remarkable thing the way everybody says it and wishes you well. It started to rain. The chap behind was just saying you're gonna get wet. So, buenos días. Hola. The other thing I meant to say is that again there's a strange smell, and it's quite strong, and it's a mixture of leather, like maybe leather in the process of being cured, and I don't know, like old wood or something, you know, really old wood that's in a manor house, something like that, and something human in some way. Hola. There is a factory, yeah. It's not a sweet smell, it's a earthy, strong, slightly pungent smell. Cheese, there's a hint of cheese in that. Like blue cheese or something. You wouldn't expect it because we've just got fields. Hello. Hello. Lovely, lovely.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Squivel here has a huge cone. He's trying to hide it, I think. But I know he's got it. He's burying it. Oh, now he's free of the cone. Looks like a library up ahead. And they've got an area of fruit or vegetables or something growing outside. I did wonder whether the smell earlier on was coming from the bodega, because there was a wine bodega some way off. Whether the smell from that would have been coming to us, mixed with the smell of the woods, I don't know. I don't imagine that they have much smell, but I suppose they must. So I've read about this before, that a lot of people put crosses in the fence here, and people have mixed feelings about it. Some people do, at least. Do you put one there or not? We're just approaching Navarette.
Hola.
Hola. Well, we're passing over the motorway. We came from over there. At this point, limping as I am, I rather wish it was still open. Not that I think they could do much for me. But good place to have one. It's interesting to think of all the people that must have been treated in there. Where they must have lain. Don Jacobo. Born on the way. We stopped for a little while. Andrew needs to sort out his bag because he can't get any water out of his platypus water bladder. I've been, I mean, when we started out today, I had a sore left leg behind my knee, and I thought it was quite bad. It's feeling the way it does sometimes when the muscle goes into spasm and then it traps the nerve, and I have problems like that because of the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I did lots of massage on it, and we've been taking it really slowly, and I can feel it twinging, but it's worse if I push to go just that little bit faster. So we've taken it slowly, and then coming around the last little hill there, the other leg started playing up, and it was so bad I couldn't walk for a while. So I had a bit of a wobbly, and it's still sore now. I'm gonna have to see. Hola, buen camino. See if I can walk it off, get some more painkillers, stop and have a break, have some coffee. It's like the left leg, it's below, like behind the knee, and in the right leg it's lower down, sort of the lower calf going to the ankle, and that's really sharp. So, but I'm determined I'm not going to let it stop me. What I don't want it to do is to get me through today and then stop me from doing the next 2 days. So, and I'm being pig-headed about carrying my pack. I don't really want to ship it forward, but if it's really bad by the end of today, I suppose I'll have to. But I'll still need to carry water no matter what. So I don't really know. It's a story that's unfolding. It's the second sign we've seen to El Molino, the windmill, which it says is open. The first sign said it welcomed pilgrims. I bet it does. We drink lots of coffee. You're having a fun time, Andrew.
Always.
Well, we've had 2 cups of coffee each. That's our second. This was a bag with 6 little dinky pain au chocolat thingies in. It now has only 2. Earlier there was a sort of cheese and chorizo mini baguette thing that we shared, and there was a thing that resembled very tender, slightly dubious, rather tasty battered chicken in a triangle. Yeah, and I've just been diving onto the food because my body says feed me, particularly pain au chocolat. A lady in front of me at the rather long queue for the panaderia got the last 2 pain au chocolat. She bought all sorts of things, and then at the last moment they went, and I was mortifyingly sad. I wasn't really that sad. It was quite sad though. Well, we're leaving Navarette. We've got about 10 miles to Nájera. There was a notice in the app warning people that there's very little in the way of water sources from here onwards, and also that there's very little shade. Fortunately today, given the shape I'm in, I'm not also competing against a hot sun yet, at least. I'm hoping that continues for at least a while. But we're still just taking it slowly. It's a cemetery. Huh. Nice building. Well, here we are, just walking through La Rioja. Oh, there are green grapes there. Looking at all the low-hanging grapes. We have many more over on the other side too. Some of them you can see better than others. They look a lot riper than those we passed earlier on, before we were in Rioja. La Rioja. They're quite small grapes. They're not the large ones. I suppose either they're going to grow more, or it's because they are a wine variety. It wouldn't quite be in keeping with the spirit of things if I weren't trying to figure out what the exact colour of this soil is. It's actually more like sand. It reminds me of powdered brick or powdered terracotta. There's a hint of one of the flavours of... Do you remember Twizzlers, Andrew?
Not really.
Twizzlers, the little sweets. I suspect it is the colour of itself. But how does one describe the colour of something that is the colour of itself? No, I shall have to give it more thought. So here's an interesting thing. On each of the rows, they seem to have pulled off a lot of the grapes. And I don't really know why, but I would guess they're allowing the ones that seem to be the best to grow more, to get more of the nutrients. I wouldn't have thought they were making raisins in the dirt. Well, the sun's coming out, at least for a short amount of time, possibly longer. The colour of the soil, when it's at its reddest, reminds me of the sandstone of places like Kenilworth Castle, Furness Abbey in the UK. But I suppose that's just red sandstone, isn't it? I don't know whether the rock here is sandstone though. Yep, there's a sign on the floor that said Ventosa this way, and there's a shell just there. Something else that surprised me is that you see things to do with the Camino on the motorways where no pilgrims are actually going to be walking. It's just something that they're proud of in this area. So at the bottom it says, we pass life searching for what we already have. It's only a question of finding the way and returning home, there where our memories live. And then it says in Ventosa, which is the name of this village. We're not going there because it's one of the detours, but it's rather nice. It's a long way along the road. It's a long way to go without your mother. It's a long way to Nájera. It's the red rock place I know in my head and soon will in the real world. Goodbye, Rioja grapes. Even though there'll be some more, it's a long, long way along the road, but my heart's in Nájera. It's interesting, we just passed the vineyard there, and where the van is, a man had got out and he'd walked down one of the rows of vines and he was coming back and sort of said hello. I noticed he was holding a tape measure. So presumably they measure the bunches of grapes. I'm hoping that as we go along here we won't disturb Gollum over there on the right. So the colour of the way is different to the colour of the soil around the vineyards. I would say the colour of the soil around the vineyards is approaching Knossos or Minoan red. What do you think, Andrew? Minoan red?
Yeah, it is a bit. Oh, Minoan red is a bit more.
It's more red, I know. I know, but it's a shade of Minoan red. Just a lighter shade. It reminds me of piles of terracotta pots and at ceramic shops that you pass at the side of the road. Which is as much as to say it reminds me of terracotta, which is a bit boring really. I'll have to do better, won't I? Reminds me a bit of some of the colours you see in Suffolk. Suffolk houses, Suffolk soil. And no doubt in many other places as well. Arizona maybe. So this is actually interesting. It's saying in Roman times it may have been on the road from Italy to Spain. It's talking about the climb. But then it starts talking about the natural substrate, a levelling layer, embankment rimmed with stone blocks, and so on. Naturalisation of the roadside, possible berm. And then cut and fill the rock for medieval way. And maybe my obsession with the colour of the soil, not that it's particularly unusual today, maybe there is something about the different layers to it. The history of it, cutting away at it, the different shades within it. There's one of those yellow butterflies here. I can never get them close enough because they don't seem to stop. They've got little black bits around the edges. Well, that's one of them there. It's just stopped. Of course, it hasn't got its wings open now. Just to perhaps explain a little further the possible reasons for the interest in the colour of the soil. Because you look down at it a lot. It's sort of your only good vibes. It becomes your constant companion, a bit like the moon was the other day. It's always there, but it's changeful too. And there are so many thoughts that go through your mind when you're not speaking to anyone. And one of them, I suppose, is to do with consciously thinking about where you're putting your feet rather than just doing so automatically. So it becomes interesting when it changes colour. You see these transitions in the landscape around you. You know, it goes from rolling hills of one colour to a general feel of it being a different colour the next day. And I suppose the name of the colour is partly irrelevant, but then when you start thinking, well, what is it exactly? I've just become aware of how imprecise our understanding of things can be, or at least my own is. It's like not knowing the names of trees that I pass. How can you describe it afterwards? Yellow arrow. It's good to see. Pain in my left knee. Plodding onward. There's a little man. I think he's meant to be a pilgrim. Just at the side of the road. Trees. Butterfly. Somebody put a butterfly thing there. Shade. Grapes. So those hills straight ahead, you can just about make out maybe some lines in them. That's our first view of Nájera, I'm pretty certain. We've still got quite a way to go. Yeah, there are a lot of flies around. Yeah. Yeah, when the sun comes out, the flies come out. There's a buzzard overhead. Not a buzzard, rather a vulture. Again. So, it is that colour, isn't it? Yep, and that's terracotta. Sometimes the signs tell you silly things, like, go up there. No, that one's just fallen over, I do know. They usually haven't fallen over, they're usually extremely good. Okay, so this reminds me of builder's sand. It's the only time you'd see it in the UK. What do you say, Andrew?
It does, really.
Yeah. Suddenly green. Isn't it pretty? Just look at the grapes. I mean, I know we're in La Rioja, but look at the grapes. He's waiting for me patiently because I've been messing around in the vineyard, as you know. Every so often walking along here, when I'm struck by how much green there is, but how much red as well. I wonder what it must look like to people who are colourblind, because I think the shade of red and the shade of green, I mean, they're always of a similar tone. But I think these in particular, they're both quite muted. And I guess that the contrast wouldn't be quite so apparent. I mean, it would look normal, but it's such a strange landscape. When we think of the character that these grapes have taken on, perhaps from the wind and the ground, the medieval ground, there is a sweetness to the air again. There's no strange hint of straw, I don't think. It's warm. There's definitely a breeze again. A hint of pilgrim. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I think so. I'm wondering about whether we should taste one or two of these grapes.
No.
Probably not.
I think they're probably not for eating. I mean, certainly not by passing pilgrims. But they're still quite little. There's no real salt in the air.
No, we haven't been the kind of sea.
No. Clay, maybe. Red wine from the red earth. Here's a thought about the colour. We're about to leave it behind, but really cheap foundation that they used to sell on the market stall. Makeup foundation. The worst type. A little white butterfly is keeping us company. It's beating us. After a while, you know, we've walked quite a long way. The extent of the grape growing really starts to hit home a bit. It's mile after mile, row after row after row. Very few people tending to them. We've seen one man with a tape measure. Mile after mile after mile. It's not surprising, I mean, when you think of how many bottles of wine are being provided globally. It's not as though it's not famous for its wine. Row after row after row. Block after block, like a city. Vultures circling over there. And that, I'm pretty sure, is Nájera that we're heading towards. I think that just to the right of that lodge factory type building is the town itself. And I know that our hotel, it's actually an albergue, it's called Hostel Ciudad de la Nájera, is right up against one of the red cliffs. I know there are caves in the cliffs. I guess they're the lines that we can see on them. I had hoped to investigate the caves, but given the shape I'm in, I'm starting to think it might not be possible.
Be straight on, or?
Yeah. They all plough.
Because no sun.
Hello. Pink Floyd.
You can see the scientists start something new, trust the magic.
Huh.
Es muy divertido. Y el paisaje hoy está muy bien, la verdad. Estoy contento.
Igual para mí es un poco más aburrida.
Yeah, we go straight across. I was just speaking to a couple of people behind us. The lady's from Belgium and the man is from Alicante, and he doesn't speak English. I think he was saying that he's been trying to do this for 2 years and it's basically now or never. He's definitely going to go to Leon. He'd like to get to Finisterre though. He's got a couple of blisters, but his muscles are fine. We were talking about which town was where, because there are a few towns around here. We're all keen to get into Nájera.
Got what?
They put a bike ramp in for people doing it with their bikes. We just passed a sign for Guillermo's taxis, and it said that he accepts bicycles and backpacks. He obviously thinks that some people will reach here and they're just ready to give up. Nope, not going to give up. We're close. In Rioja, we've noticed that there are rest areas like this, and there are some information points, but what they don't tell you is how far it is to the various towns. Whereas in Navarette, there were the blue finger post signs, and they told you how far to the various towns along the way. Here, there aren't any. So you don't really know, you just got your own maps to go off to tell roughly how far away you are. I think we're approaching Nájera. I can see the red hills, the red sort of cliff-like face with what looks like caves in it. I guess we've got a mile or so to go. Not entirely sure. I'm struggling with my legs. My left leg is really tight and playing up. Both legs are sore, but I keep sort of carrying my left leg with my right leg. It starts dragging along the floor because I just can't lift it enough. How many people have come along here and had these similar problems along the years? It's part of it, isn't it, I suppose? Yep.
We've done a fair amount before we started having them, though.
We have done a fair amount, and I reckon, you know, I'd like to think that my muscles will just toughen up. They'll get used to it. I'd like to think I could go home and continue doing this sort of thing and just get tougher and tougher. So next time I'll come back and be able to go most of the way before I have muscle problems. That would be nice. Although, probably get blisters then instead, the way the man that I was just talking to from Alicante has. It's part of it really, isn't it? That you're doing it as a physical thing. And a thing that you're thinking about, and that you're just able to see all around. That time within nature. I have more thoughts about the colour of the earth. Not quite so much this pale colour here, but when it's a little redder. Occasionally you see a dried leaf that seems almost the colour of it. But I think it's crab colour. What do you think, Andrew? Crab colour?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a bit.
It is crab colour. Yes. More crab colour down there. We've seen a lot that's more that sort of colour. Crab, yeah. So it must be processing flour. There's a picture of a windmill on it actually, but harina is flour. So a harinera, Riojera, is going to be processing flour from Rioja. Haven't seen any wheat fields. I suppose they must exist. The water's so clear.
Which way?
Straight on down there. One kilometre.
Very nice of them to finally give us an indication.
I know, 1 kilometre away. Well, it's 3 o'clock and we're now going through the outskirts of Nájera. Our Hostel de Ciudad, where we're staying, is at the end of this road, near to the rocks. and then the Camino in the morning will continue on. It's sort of an L shape. We go as far as the rocks, and then the Camino will go off to the side tomorrow. And I am just, I mean, it is a long way. So glad to be here. And I think we've actually made pretty good time. It's 3 o'clock. We've taken it steady. That's not too bad, really. Rio Nájera. See the red rocks. There's a lovely stream running through it. It's really pretty. Oh. And our apartment's going to be across here and then to the right. Not an apartment. Our room. Well, we've been here for a few minutes now. About 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. Instead of going to the hotel, we came to a little restaurant which is down near to this lovely area by the river. Because I felt as though I needed... Well, basically, I've plunged into the beer. I'll only have one, but I want to take an ibuprofen, an anti-inflammatory, and just go and rest in the room later.
Here's the bravas.
Yeah, we've ordered some patatas bravas, which I believe are now on their way. Here they come. Yeah, this is what I want. Large amounts of potato. Which is not really like me at all, but that is what I want right now. And we're just eating at that little restaurant down there with the white cover over it. Well, that sign's pointing to our hotel, Ciudad de Nájera. You can see the caves. There are more just up there as well, to the side of that sloping roof. See lots of pigeons in them. Ciudad de Nájera is to the right here. And here we are. I said it was near to the rocks. Well, this is our room, and as a welcome gift I was offered a beer, so I didn't need to get one before really. I was going to be offered one anyway, but it's specially for me. It's called Holandesa. It's for Lindsay Holland. It's got my name on it. I like that. And then out here, this is our view. can see the caves. Something else that's occurred to me about the colour of the rock and the soil, although the rock here is even redder, is that, and if I zoom out a little from the rock to show you our rim, it's somewhat the colour of my shell. So from our rim we can see a vulture circling. I think it's a vulture. I've been taking some photos and I'm going to look at them in a moment. It's behaving like a vulture. It looks very pale when it's in front of the trees. It's a great view from this room. Well, this is how close we are to the cave system. Now I believe once you get into the caves, there's a sort of corridor of caves that you can walk around the around the outside of the rock in them. And I'm very keen to get to them, even though we're a bit sore. After a shower it's not quite so bad. And I was reading that they were man-made caves built to shelter from the Celts, which is pretty fascinating. So, will we get up there? That is how close they are to the rim. And if I can't get up there, what's the point in being here? So I was just talking to the gentleman in the hotel, and he was saying that we can't go into the caves because they've closed them. They've been closed for 2 years to reinforce them to make them safe. But if we want to, we can go up a hill, and he's given me directions to get there. And we can sort of see over to them. But you can see in the footage I just showed you how the little windows out of the caves, they've got sort of bars across them, presumably made of wood or something, and reinforced. It looked really interesting when I saw some pictures of it, but obviously we can't actually go into them, which probably makes life simpler in some ways. I think it might be this. This is it. What shop? Andrew, there's a little tower where I believe sometimes there is a lady that is dressed in a large 19th century outfit with a telescope.
How do you know that?
Well, you've heard the stories, haven't you, about the ladies dressed in large 19th century dresses that hang around in little toilets like that with telescopes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've never seen one. We are in search of the steps that will lead us to the view to the caves. And I suspect this might not be the correct set of steps, but we're going up here anyway. It says that it leads to the Castillo, so presumably it's to the ruined castle. Yes, so this is the information about the caves. When are they from? The 15th century. But before that, the first reference that's documented to them is the 11th century. Neither is there evidence archaeological that indicates that they were used for individual habitation. There's no existence of religious things. They're saying that they think that the reason was probably security against attacks. So that's what we read earlier on. They go all the way around. What a red place it is. So up there you can see a sort of balcony area, walkway. That was where I wanted to go, and there seem to be people up there. But maybe they're not meant to be up there, I guess. So on that side we have a normal church, and then at the far end it's a cave sort of thing. It's clay, it's just built into... I mean, look at the little holes in whatever that is. What a fascinating structure. I think this is a very good place. So red. Everything's red. Some might say that I'm a bit of an idiot, or just a glutton for punishment. But here we are, climbing stairs, climbing a hill above Nájera. After earlier today I could barely walk. But a shower and a leg massage by the lovely kind Andrew seems to have kind of patched me up sufficiently that I can wander around without too much trouble. So, you can't not go and see the caves, can you? It wouldn't be the thing to do. I like it here. It's a good place. So that's the restoration work they're doing. A lot of hotels down there somewhere. I'm wondering whether our hotel might be between that little crack next to the sort of cream building which is behind the church. There's a little crack. I think it could be there. You can see how close the caves are. So that's looking down at the Castillo, the castle, the ruins thereof. I think the swift's calling overhead. I'd still really like to know what the story is behind that part at the back with the holes in it that looks like it's made out of the rock. Here we are, sitting outside the restaurant La Maceria, which... Sorry, I'm just waving to somebody who's in the doorway. Lots of people are giggling behind us. Anyway, we're eating absolutely delicious food. This is patatas bravas. But it's not like any, or rather it's not patatas bravas, it's patatas a la riojana. And they're absolutely delicious. And I have this plate of beans with jamón ibérica. And again, it's just absolutely wonderful food. They brought us bread, which he warned us was still hot. We have, of course, wine, which is from Rioja. And it's just absolutely full of flavour. It's rather good, isn't it, Andrew?
It's beautiful. It's lovely.
So these are our main courses, or second plates rather. Andrew's got pork cheeks, and I've got dorada, which I believe is gilt head bream. So I was trying to say earlier, Navarette means the haberdashery. And inside they have various things to do with the theme. For example, they have all the different cottons, different colours in there. We've been talking about how impressed we've been with this meal. It was literally the best fish I've ever had in my life. And I've had some very fine fish, particularly in Greece. But they do little things like they brought the bill to us, pinned down in a pincushion, because it's the haberdashery is the name of the restaurant. It's been absolutely beautiful. And it cost, we worked it out about £33 for 2 courses with wine and bread and a dessert if we'd wanted it. We just had coffee. And drinks before as well while we were waiting. It's late for us, 9:30. Well, we got quite a long day tomorrow, not quite as long as some.
Well, I think if we can get an early start and get into Santo Domingo in plenty of time, because there are things to see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Santo Domingo de la Caldera. Here we are.